Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by AmCham and FinMark Communications. My name is Bree Simpson. I'm a part of the AmCham team and we're so excited to get to connect with you all. And so thanks for being patient through a slight delay. We wanted to give everyone a chance to log on and get to hear the great content about business communications for the new normal, how to stay connected with clients and partners. Today, speaking with us, we have two phenomenal speakers. We have Layla Danish and Zahra Taher, and they are from FinMark Communications, which is a communications consultancy that has a broad range of international and Middle Eastern financial institutions, listed companies, family offices, and government organizations. And they help them to strategically build their profiles and manage their reputations across the MENA markets and globally, which is pretty crucial right now. Both of them have around 2 decades of experience, so we're looking forward to tapping into that. And the best news is this isn't the only opportunity you have as an AmCham member or one of the public to get great information. We have several great events coming up in the next week or so. So for Earth Day, we're partnering with the U.S. Embassy for green technology, protecting intellectual property and the environment. So Peter Mehravi will be coming back. He was with us about a month ago and really engaging in deep expertise to talk about the IP aspect of green technology, and Nabil Ahmed from Green Innova Trading will be sharing his experiences. So if you're interested in that, there's a registration form required and you'll get details through email, but we'll send a follow-up email with more details. And the next event after that is on the 22nd in the afternoon, and that is a live webinar about maintaining resilient supply chains through crisis. And this is a phenomenal lineup. This is once again brought by FinMark Communications, and this is under the patronage of His Excellency Engineer Kamal bin Ahmed Mohammed, with a great lineup. Omar Nassif from Mondelez will be speaking, as well as Dr. Christopher A. Huckam and Susan Hunter, and Ahmed from APM Terminals, and Ahmed Al-Lemma from the Chair of Transportation and Logistics Committee, and Iman Ibrahim, she's from the Fulith Holdings, and Balaji Arhani. It will also be here from Bahrain Shipping Agents Association. So a really robust group of people that will be able to really give a full perspective on how to keep your supply chains going well. And then AmCham will be hosting our next webinar on the 26th. We'll be having the Minister, His Excellency Zayed bin Rashid Al Zayani will speak on the 26th at 12 p.m. More details to follow. And don't worry if those slides went too fast for you. After this webinar is over, we are recording it, so that way if you have to step away, you'll get the recording of the event, so you won't have to miss out on any of the great content and the updates about these events. And as we get started, just some housekeeping rules. As you might know, and we're all getting quite professional with our webinars these days. As of right now, you're not on camera, no one can see you. So if you aren't quite in business professional clothing, no worries. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. And the way you can do that is by submitting your questions through the question box. And at the bottom of your screen, you might see a taskbar like what's on the PowerPoint. And you'll notice there's a question mark in a box that's circled on the screen. Go there, submit your questions, and we'll work at incorporating them into the presentation as it comes along. So without much further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Layla to get us started.
Thank you, Bree, and thank you to AmCham for organizing this and having us here today to chat with you guys. I mean, really, with everything that's been going on, we've been getting a lot of questions, and we know that AmCham has been getting questions from your members about, what to do in the new normal, when is the right time to start reaching out to people again. And we've really been getting a lot of questions, and some of the big questions we've been getting are sort of what levels of communication are now appropriate. Is it the right time to start marketing again in the midst of all of this turmoil that's still happening? And are people even listening? So, these are some of the questions I've been hearing from people, and we suppose you've been hearing some of the same ones.
Yeah, Layla, I think one of the biggest concerns from people is they don't want to talk to people too much, but they don't want their customers to think they've been forgotten and they don't want to seem insensitive. How do you go
Yeah.
forward?
Well, it's interesting because, I had an email that came through from a big restaurant group that, I normally used to frequent. And they basically just said straight out, they said, we're having a really hard time understanding when we should be communicating with you, when it's appropriate. We don't want to be insensitive, but we also don't want you to think that we've forgotten about you. And the only time that we do reach out is when we are open and can sell you something. So, I mean, I thought that was a very interesting and sort of frank, email to send out. And then they went on, to share information, about what they were doing, how they were coping. So one of the things really, I mean, if we talk about what level of communication is appropriate right now, or is it appropriate to be reaching out? And we think it is definitely appropriate to be reaching out, at this point. People should be reaching out as much as they can, as much as, as much as they haven't been actually over the past few weeks, to get back to sort of regular communications. And while there are kind of no absolutes in terms of, how often should I be reaching out? Is X too little? Is X too much? I mean, I think by industry and depending on the kind of business you have, it's going to vary sort of, I would imagine, greatly. But I think one of the rules of thumb that everyone can just keep in mind is if there's something material that's happening in your business that in the past you would have communicated, I think, it's time to go back and do that. And also in your industry, if there are things going on in the industry, that you should be communicating with people, things that have happened as a result of, of COVID and what's been going on. The more information you have to share with people, I think at this point will be appreciated. So that's kind of, in terms of the level, it varies. And I think people just need to kind of brainstorm and think sensibly. But if there's something, important going on in your business, I don't think people need to hold back now in sharing those kinds of announcements.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Another question that we've been getting, or comment we've getting, is before people said, if you were marketing a car, you'd say, buy this car, it'll make you happy. And now people say, yeah, COVID-19 is really sad and hard, isn't it? But buy this car and it'll make you happy. So how do you suggest companies navigate this while still recognizing the need to keep developing their business?
Well, I think, I think the thing is, it's definitely just making sure you hit the right tone. So if done correctly, communicating with your stakeholders in good times and in bad times, as we've said, is very important. People want to know that, as soon as things get tough, you don't disappear. You're not sort of back in your box thinking, well, how will I do this and how will I do that? And it doesn't really matter what's happening with my customers. So, I mean, I think, one needs to sit down, with their management team, communications teams, advisors, and really have a brainstorm about what the people, your stakeholders, what it is that they need to hear at this time. And, shape your messages in that way and be sensitive to what's going on. But at the same time, business does go on. People still need cars. People still need services. So, I think done right and not done in a way where you're trying to maybe use COVID or use a difficult circumstance in a way to piggyback off of it. I think that is what annoys people. But I think if you're quite, frank and again, like shape your messages in the correct way, people want to hear from you and people still need goods and services.
And, on that note, some people, I don't know if you experience this, they are bombarded with emails and they feel like they don't want to communicate too much. Or if you have an important message, how do you get people to listen when everyone's routines have been turned upside down so much?
Well, I think, initially when clients were asking us, so let's say the first week that people had kind of, gone off to home working and, the news obviously was very much singularly focused on, the outbreak of COVID, what people were doing to cope, what measures, governments were taking and what measures businesses were taking. And I think at that point, when people would ask us, should we be announcing anything right now? Should we be announcing new products, new services? We'd had this announcement ready to go and it was supposed to go out next week. Should we still go ahead or should we wait a week? At that point we said, listen, you need to just put that on hold and wait a few weeks and let's just, let the dust settle. But I do think now the dust has settled. You know, we are kind of in a new normal and a new reality and a holding pattern, you know, so to speak. So at this time, I think, you know, people do have the bandwidth now that they've adjusted to homeschooling their kids however many hours a day, or, you know, working at home and, you know, getting, you know, in a pattern of knowing how to communicate with their colleagues or their customers. And I think, you know, now things that have settled in, like people are listening. And as I said before, you know, people still require goods and services. So now if you have announcements, I think, you know, it is the right time. I do think people are listening. And Zahra is going to talk about this a little bit later, but, you know, the media is also listening. You know, they are looking for news now again. So, you know, we've been seeing that our clients who have now sort of gone forward with making normal announcements and even, you know, new products or new services or things that they had, you know, either had in the works already, or new things that have come about to kind of you know, give better service or help people cope with the situation that we all find ourselves in today. So, you know, definitely people are listening to those kinds of announcements now, including the media.
Yeah, looking at some of the questions we're getting from the audience, one thing that I'm seeing is a question about what level of transparency is required in this messaging. You know, with some of the uncertainty, how much transparency is good or bad?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, if they could be a little bit more specific about the sector. So, you know, whatever it is, I guess, I mean, I'll try to speak very broadly, but you don't want to cause panic, of course, right? Because you don't want people to be unduly scared. So, and we also have to understand, depending on what kind of service you're in, you know, maybe people won't understand the nitty gritty behind what you have to do to keep, you know, certain services or certain things going. So I think like getting down to a granular level like that about what you've had to do, or if you've had to struggle to keep, you know, things online or things going. I mean, I don't think you need to get that detailed about things, but I do think you need to set expectations correctly, especially, let's say, for listed companies or, you know, companies, a variety of, you know, governments, you know, you want people to be prepared for anything shocking that's going to be coming up. So if you don't say anything and you act like everything is perfect, and then all of a sudden you drop a bomb, you know, that is not going to be very welcomed. But, you know, if you can kind of help groom people along the way and say, listen, you know, obviously we've been impacted. These are some of the things we've been impacted on. These are some of the results that maybe will be impacted as we go forward. So I think, you know, transparency is important, but I guess the level would, you know, depend on the kind of business. But as I said, I don't think you want people to have a total surprise about something negative that's going to happen. And at the other side, you don't want people to panic. So be a little judicious.
Yeah, well, I guess this kind of leads to the COVID specific type of communications. We had one question from Kais, our president. He was just asking, what's a great way to communicate with people, particularly when they're using Corona-19 as COVID-19 as a means not to pay? Is there a good communication strategy for how to handle that situation?
Well, I guess this question would probably be better to give into one of the, what are those services that that chase bad the bill collectors. No, but I think it's tough because I think you have to acknowledge that everyone is going through a hard time, but that's not to say some people who aren't paying their bills were already not paying them before this happened. So maybe there's that distinction to be made. Maybe there's two kinds of communications, you know, one to people who genuinely are having difficulties, and one to people who, you know, if they're outstanding bills for months and months and months, we know that's not really COVID related. And maybe that first type is to appeal to their sense of, you know, we understand you're going through a difficult time. We all are, you know, we all need to try to do the right thing by our partners. Whereas the other one, you know, maybe is a message with a bit more leniency.
Excellent. Well, I know we could keep talking forever, but I'd love to hear from Zahra. Particularly, we've been getting a lot of questions about what sort of channels should people be using. We're settling into this new normal where we're not gathering physically, so we can't go to some of the great events that we've gotten accustomed to. Zahra, what are your thoughts about how companies should be using different channels?
Hi, Bree. Hi, Leila, and hi, everyone who's seeing us. Although we are going advanced in our presentation, we will be talking more broadly about it, but I think with the technology, using the different technologies available and choosing the right platform whether it's the platform of technology or the social media. We need to, depending on our target audience, where they are residing, we need to decide on that. But definitely, COVID-19 proved that events should be even more during the lockdown. Events should be done more for people to be connected. And as we go forward in the presentation, we'll definitely highlight some of the channels.
Excellent. And yeah, so how, looking at, direct reaching out, what should the direct reaching out look like?
I mean, in terms of like what should businesses be doing now? I mean, I think the thing to remember is, this has happened. Yes, it is, an unprecedented, economic impact, financial impact, human impact on everybody. But at the end of the day, if you look at your business, I think for most of us, the objective of our business and the messages we're trying to deliver about what we do and where we add value are the same. So, if we're kind of say that this is going to be the new normal for a while, we think that people should get back as soon as possible, to their normal means of communication. So the normal channels you used to use for sure. And then the types of communications you were doing. So, if it's about your performance and your results, obviously some companies who are listed or, report to a regulator have to divulge that anyway. But let's say, you have other things that are just milestones or progress. We're just saying don't shy away from telling people that, what you're doing, how you're doing it, if they've been, as I said before, new products or services, or companies who have been involved in transactions or have, been developing partnerships or appointments, CSR, just your regular communications, things you used to communicate. I think one can go back to doing those things. As we said, I think there's bandwidth for people to absorb it. And the media also, has been showing that they're very interested in picking up news again. So I think, on that side, go back to your regular communications. And then the next thing is obviously there is still going to be communications around COVID. The situation is ongoing in the region and also around the world. So, I think teams need to figure out, businesses need to figure out how they can show value, and importantly, use this as an opportunity to show thought leadership. So obviously, depending on the kind of business it is and, the disruptions or whatever that maybe are still being felt in your business area or for your partners and customers, you obviously need to provide updates on any sort of ongoing interruptions, or if things were interrupted and you're now putting those things back to normal, then you need to go ahead and, let people know you're doing that. And then I would just say that, in terms of thought leadership, this is kind of the right time, like especially for businesses that are in, let's say, accounting businesses or other kinds of legal firms, banks. There's lots of legislation, things that are changing, by the minute. Governments are trying to put together stimulus packages. Both private and public sector companies are coming up with ways to, help both individuals and businesses. So if there are any ways that you can help people sort of decipher what's going on, hold their hands a bit in terms of letting them understand, what kinds of things are coming up, how they can benefit from it. I think, all of these types of things, basically showing that, you are thinking of them and wanting to try to help them along through this situation, I think is very, very useful, and it gives you something really smart to communicate about. You're not just communicating about yourself or your products, you're actually giving a value add and helping them, helping them along as well. So I would suggest wherever there is an opportunity to exhibit thought leadership, that companies should take that opportunity.
Excellent. And I know we're just to watch our time to make sure that we're able to move ahead. I'd love to move to Zahra's portion of the presentation and to get your perspective on these different channels. So we've been getting several questions about knowing what channel to use for what. Mahmoud asks, other than the frequency of reaching out, what vehicle is best to do so with? WhatsApp, video, email? So I'd love to hear your perspective, Zahra, and maybe we can start with just direct outreach. How should companies be doing it?
So I think all companies should look at it holistically. So now post COVID-19, it's not different. You all have to look at the different tools. It's exactly the same. It's only the means have changed. Direct outreach is very important, personalized communication. Leila highlighted a few examples, like every sector or every client has a different communication message to different sectors. So all companies should make sure that they are communicating to their target audience. I will start with their internal target audience because most of the employees are working from outside. They are not next to each other, so they should not forget the employees and then to their clients, of course. So direct outreach and being proactive is very important. Reaching to them is very important. Media relations, it's again, at the beginning, the first 2 weeks, like Leila said, everybody was shy to go and announce. Media now are looking for different and positive news. I think they are also fed up of COVID-19. They want to know what's happening, life is going on, companies are having new products, new appointments. So the media, I can say, are hungry for news. They are always asking for certain announcements. So I would really say bravo media for changing the way of, like, it's helping us to change our way of thinking of COVID-19. Social media was a very important tool before COVID-19, and now it's becoming even more important because most of the companies, whether they are small businesses or large businesses, are using the different social media channels to deliver their messages, again, for their different stakeholders. So maybe the same tool, but it has different message if they are speaking to their employees or their board members or their shareholders. So I think this COVID-19 had accelerated the use of the social media in the best way possible. We'll go back to the next slide where we're going to talk about the events. Many of our clients were going to stop or postpone their events. And from March, FinMark Communications, we were advising our clients not to stop the events, but to keep them going because people with the lockdown in some countries, and we're lucky that we don't have a lockdown in Bahrain, still they want to learn, they want to interact, they want to know about different events. I would like to say AmCham, we're one of the organizations which impressed me that the COVID-19 didn't stop the events. The events are going forward and even more. It's even giving the companies the opportunity to have regional speakers to join these events. In the past, if I wanted Leila to come for an event, she would have flown to Bahrain. But now with such a platform which we are using, I think it's very good for the clients, and I advise everyone to use the virtual events to continue their business. I'll give some of the tips that we think from our experience are good for any virtual event. It's very important to pick the right technology platform. There are many technology platforms. We're using the Microsoft Teams, there is Zoom, there is Webinex, but every platform is good for a different event. It's like a normal event. You choose a certain hotel for an event. Here you choose the right platform for your event. Select a theme and topic that addresses questions and issues and concerns for everyone. Don't only think of yourself and how I want to promote my product. What is important for your audience, how they will interact with you. It's very important that you have the 360 view when you're choosing your speakers and inviting your attendees, because you want people to learn from this forum or from any event you're trying to achieve, because every event will have different objectives. The timing. Some people think because it's virtual event, they can do it at any time of the day and for as long as they want. No, you need to choose. Is this a regional or an international event? Should I do it in the afternoon so international people can attend, or should I do it in the morning? And we advise that it should not be long. I think a 1 hour event should be the maximum with a Q&A. But these things, when you're doing a virtual event, is very important. And the feedback. Once the event is over, you need to connect to the people who have attended and the people who couldn't attend. Give them the opportunity to benefit from the event which was virtual. Use this technology to make the best out of it.
Sounds great. So what I'm hearing from you is that even though you're not paying for a ballroom in a fancy hotel, it needs the same amount, if not more, strategic thinking to do. And just in light of keeping things short, let's move to some more Q&A. One of the questions that came up is, working in the clothing and retail industry, about 80% of our customers are out of the country. How do we constantly communicate with clients that are abroad without bothering them, while also ensuring they know we're still around?
Here, I'll take that one because I'm a big online shopper, so I've been getting a lot of these messages. And I have to say there are some people who've been doing it right, where when I get the messages, I think, okay, you know, exactly the point that the person asking this question made is that they're doing it in such a tone and way that, you know, they obviously grasp the situation. I mean, most of us are in lockdown one way or another, so buying new clothes and is not really top of my list, but at the same time, you know, it's nice that, you know, they're continuing to keep in touch. There's other ones who send you like the headline and, you know, it's something about, you know, look fabulous when you're going out, and you think, okay, you're obviously very out of touch because nobody is going out. So, I mean, I think the ones who have been sending sort of discount codes and, you know, thinking about what our new lives are like and how their products might be useful during this time. I mean, those ones I think I don't mind hearing from them. And as I said, I think we all have to understand that people are struggling to keep their businesses going right now. You know, it's not that they're trying to, you know, be insensitive or inundate you, but, you know, some of them are doing it better than others, and that's much more appreciated than getting one that's a bit tone deaf. So I think, you know, sending out things to people with discounts and, you know, telling them how you can maybe offer them products or services that fit into this new normal and, you know, help them get through it.
Yeah,
I think, you know, I think those are fair enough things to be sending through.
yeah, another kind of common theme I'm seeing here is, you know, looking at striking that balance in your communications. Is there more empathy? Is it a less of a hard sell? And how do you do this knowing that we're heading into Ramadan and summer is coming and these are normally not great communication time periods? How do you get your message to be the right balance of emotions and also to get it out there before the communication windows kind of close up a bit?
I think the communication windows are really expanding. They're not closing. I think now people want to communicate more because they don't have anything else to do. So I would see this Ramadan, there is no majlis, there is no diwaniya in this region, there are no outings. So people want something to read about, to know about. And Leila said a very fair point that it's the right time to give the right sort of promotions and messages for everyone. So on the contrary, I think this Ramadan and this summer will be much more, people will listen to you. So just give them the right messages.
Excellent. And
incentives.
Incentives are great. Yeah. And maybe our last question for now, to respect people's time, is B2B. Is there anything different about the advice you've given for businesses that are, you know, working with businesses, not consumers?
It's the same advice. You need to communicate with the businesses. You need to be in touch all the time, but I will let Leila.
No, I think that's exactly actually what I was going to say, is that, like we kind of said right at the start, is, you know, wherever you think, whatever kind of business you have, it doesn't matter what industry, what business, you know, if you have something material about your business or the industry to share, then you can share it. But again, you know, one needs to make sure that you strike the right tone and that you use the right channels to do it. I think, you know, that's really, I think that principle is a good guiding principle.
Well, thank you so much for that, Leila, and Zahra. Thank you for both of your input. I know I really enjoy getting to hear from your expertise and your perspective as we all navigate this new normal. We'll be sending out the recording of this webinar, and also we'll have their contact information. So if you had a question that we didn't quite get to right now, please reach out to Leila or Zahra. I'd be happy to engage with you via email or another forum. And we look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at our upcoming events. And we know right now that a lot of you are navigating challenges. If you're an AmCham member, we would love to have the chance to have a video call with you and hear what's going on. And if you're not an AmCham member, this is a great time to find a community of people that can support you. And AmCham membership is a great way to find that community. So we hope you have a wonderful day, you stay healthy, and you continue to communicate with your partners and stakeholders as we all get used to this new normal. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bree.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.